It began as little more than a whisper, so faint that at first he believed it to be nothing more than the sound of old plumbing, that metallic hum of age and water and walls settling into themselves, and for the first few mornings, he thought nothing of it. He would rise, bleary and half-aware, shuffle into the small bathroom with its chipped tile floor and faded mirror, and perform the same tired ritual, flick the light switch once, twice, wait for the dim yellow bulb to stop flickering, then pull the toothbrush from the cracked ceramic cup and stare at his own face for longer than he needed to. It was during these moments, quiet, still, wrapped in the early silence that lives between dreams and the rest of the day, that he began to notice it, a voice, distant and quiet, coming not from outside the building, nor through the pipes, but from behind the shower curtain. He never pulled it open. There was no reason to, the bathtub was always empty, dry, clean in the way unused things remain clean, but the voice made its presence known not with urgency, not with volume, but with consistency, a soft thread of sound that never spoke clearly, never called for him, but murmured as if lost in thought, as if unaware it was being overheard. It didn't happen at night. It didn't happen while he showered. Only in the earliest hours, when the day had yet to begin and the apartment was still wrapped in shadow. A whisper. A rhythm. A presence. He began to time his movements, brushing slower, listening harder, not out of fear, but curiosity, a cautious fascination that hovered just at the edge of dread, and though he never made out the words, he became certain that the tone was changing. Where at first it had seemed listless, meandering, a kind of absent-minded muttering like a man speaking in sleep, the voice had grown more intentional, more structured, pausing at the right places, stressing certain syllables, as if practicing a script it had not yet fully memorized. And though he never responded, never spoke aloud, never reached for the curtain, he began to feel that his silence was being registered, that the voice had grown familiar with the rhythm of his not speaking, and was beginning to shape itself in relation to that absence. He thought of recording it, once, held his phone low near the edge of the curtain, thumb hovering over the button, but in that moment the voice stopped entirely, not fading out but ceasing completely, like a hand pulled back too quickly, and the silence that followed was louder than anything he had heard before in the apartment, an absence so absolute it seemed to hum against his skin. He didn't try again. Over time, the voice became part of the morning, as regular as the light delay, as expected as the stiffness in his neck, and though it never grew louder, it grew closer. The words still escaped understanding, but their shape was clearer, not mumbled, not broken, and sometimes, if he focused hard enough, he believed he could hear something like his name, not shouted, not spoken, but breathed into the room with a strange and terrible familiarity, the way only someone who knows you deeply can say your name without raising their voice. He stopped turning on the light. He stopped brushing his teeth in the bathroom. but he couldn't stop entering. Each morning, drawn by something he couldn't name, he found himself standing in the doorway again, the curtain drawn tight across the tub, the air in the room slightly colder than the rest of the apartment, and though he never stepped forward, never made a sound, the voice would begin again, softer, more confident, as though it had been waiting for him in the dark all along. And then, one morning, the voice paused. Only for a moment. Then it said something, clearly, directly, in perfect English, a phrase so short and final that it sent a ripple through his spine that didn't leave him for the rest of the day. You always listen. After that morning, when the voice had spoken with unmistakable clarity, the apartment ceased to feel like a closed and silent structure and began instead to resemble something slightly porous, something that no longer simply contained him but listened to him, remembered him, and waited, not with the anticipation of a human presence, but with the pressure of a surface worn thin by attention. He avoided the bathroom altogether, choosing instead to rinse his face in the kitchen sink, neglect the mirror, abandon the toothbrush entirely, but despite this effort, the door to the bathroom became a point of gravity, a fixed presence at the edge of his awareness, and each time he passed it, he could feel a subtle tension in the air, not like a draft or temperature drop, but a concentration, a thin pressure of something holding itself still on the other side of the door, like breath waiting to be acknowledged. On the third day, without meaning to, without a conscious decision, he found himself already standing in the bathroom doorway just before dawn, barefoot on the cold tile, his arms at his sides, his posture too upright, too composed, as though placed there rather than arrived. The door had opened silently at some point during the night, the light inside was dim, humming faintly without flickering, and the shower curtain, same fabric, same dull, gray-white surface, was drawn fully closed, without wrinkle or pull, like it had been carefully smoothed by someone who wanted to hide not an object, but a shape. He didn't step inside, nor did he speak, but he listened with a depth of attention that felt practiced, as if his body had already learned the sequence.